Welcome back to SmartPak's Ask the Vet video series with Dr. Lydia Gray, SmartPak staff veterinarian and medical director. I'm SmartPaker Sarah, and I don't know if you guys missed us, but we missed you.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We did not get to film a video last month because of a scheduling conflict, which, if you can believe it, was not because Dr. Gray lives in Illinois. I was the problem, and I come to the office every day. So I'm sorry that we missed you guys, but we're going to make up for it, and we are going to do 2 back-to-back videos. We're going to answer 10 questions today, but only 5 in this video, and you're going to have to wait for a little bit for the next one to come out. So just be patient, but it's coming. Yep. So as always, we're here to answer your horse health questions, and the questions that get submitted and voted on, as you guys know, are all eligible to get a gift card if we answer the question in the video. Right. And if you get your question answered and you haven't gotten your gift card, email CustomerCare at SmartPak, and we'll make sure we take care of that for you right away. In the meantime, you can check out our horse health library for all of the questions that we've answered previously, because a lot of times we get a lot of repeat questions.
Well, and that's how questions get selected. If I just answered it, I'm not going to pick it again to be voted on.
Because we want to keep you guys excited and interested in watching for more.
And there's lots of good topics out there, so keep sending new topics.
Absolutely. We are always looking for new questions. Speaking of how many questions we've answered, we hit a milestone. We've done 5 questions a month for over a year now, so we've gotten through a whole bunch of questions, but we got our 1,000th question submitted,
and that's on them.
Which is really exciting, so thank all of you guys for submitting that. And we got our first question via text.
Cool. It's about time. I'm a little surprised.
I know. We're coming into this millennia, and it's very exciting. But if you guys don't know, you can text our customer care team to place an order or have account management. There's all kinds of details. You can go to smartpak.com and visit the Contact Us page to find out more about texting.
Making your life easier, one text at a time.
That's right. That's right. Changing the world, 4 hooves at a time. All right, so with that, let's jump into our questions. Our first question was submitted by Maris Lisa on Instagram, and she's wondering, how do I know if I need to give my horse electrolytes after an intense ride on a hot day? And boy, is that a topical question right now.
Oh gosh, because it's really humid.
Well, so Illinois in the Midwest is pretty humid, but yesterday here at SmartPak, awful outside.
It was like Illinois weather.
It was like swimming through the parking lot.
Yeah. So that's the critical thing and it's not as simple as adding the temperature to the humidity, although there's that rule of 150 and that works to a degree. When weather companies do it, it's a really complicated algorithm. But the humidity is what makes it tough for horses, right, in the heat. And so what you can do is, this is my rule, like not the rule of 150, it's Lydia's rule, but I feed my horse salt year round. Because in the summer, you need it for sweating, and in the winter, you need it for drinking and hydration. Okay. Then in the summer, I don't change, I add electrolytes. And when I heard a question, I thought, why not? Because electrolytes are not something you can load. They don't save them. So you can't feed them, say, in May and then be all set for June, July, August. You feed them every day. And you even give like a paste of them on particularly hot, humid, sweaty, hard work days. But you don't have to have an intense ride, as she says, to know, to trigger yourself, I should give electrolytes. Any horse, anywhere that's sweating needs electrolytes, because it's not just fluid that is sweated out, like to cool the body. It's the fluid and minerals like sodium, chloride, potassium, and also to a more limited extent, calcium, magnesium. So why not give them? They're safe. They're just excreted out in the urine if they're not used. But if they're needed, they're there. And so your horse does not get into a situation of dehydration, but also being deficient in those key minerals. So I say salt year round, electrolytes whenever there's a potential for sweating, and keep pastes on hand for when you're trailering and it's hot, or you are going to compete and it's hot, and then you're good.
So electrolytes a little bit more like for people taking a daily multivitamin and less like taking an Advil when you have a headache. It's not for a specific problem. It's like a general good thing to do all the time kind of deal.
Oh, Yes.
You see what I mean?
I do.
She's talking about like, oh, after an intense ride, and it's like, was today hard enough that he needs an electrolyte? And it's, if he's sweating, let him have electrolytes.
Yeah, I don't think of it that way. I think of it as something that should be on board daily, and then maybe a little extra hit when it gets like it is this, yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. So you talked about that humidity is what makes it really hard for horses when it's hot. Why is that?
Well, because horses are like people in that they sweat to cool themselves off. And when the moisture in the air climbs, then that mechanism, that cooling method, is not as effective. And that's when you can run into dangerous situations of heat exhaustion, even heat stroke.
All right. So sweating is actually good for you, not just an unfortunate thing that happens when you walk around in the parking lot for 4 minutes. Okay, our next question is from Hannah, and it was submitted to CustomerCare@SmartPak.com. And Hannah's wondering, are there certain things you would recommend for older horses versus younger horses? So would you recommend it more for an older horse? Why? And she's suggested examples are cold hosing, longer warm-ups, stretching before a ride, etc.
So this is more in terms of like exercise.
That is where it seems her question was going. Although if my 28-year-old horse Cody answered this question, he would say older horses deserve more treats.
Okay.
Because they've had to put up with a lot more. But he gets plenty of smart cookies.
Here's what's interesting is there's actually beginning to be some significant research right in this area because horses are living longer. I mean,
just like people.
Just like people. So the healthcare, nutrition is really ramping up and the horses' lives are being extended. And so now we're like, but wait a minute, is there a difference in exercise or how you should work the older horse versus the younger horse? And it turns out there is. There is, just like in people, an age-related loss of muscle mass.
Oh.
There's an age, and I forget if it's 40, maybe 45, when the muscle mass
For people.
in people begins to decrease over time, and so you need to counter that. And it's the same in people, in horses. And so they looked at why does that happen, and it's complicated, it's cool, it's interesting. It's got to do with satellite cells if you want to Google it, but there is a loss in the mass, the volume of muscle in horses. It's harder to maintain their top line. So you need to do specific things to maintain it. Likewise, for certain reasons, horses and people, as they age, have a reduced aerobic capacity. So her point, I think she talked on, should you warm up slower? Yes. And cool down longer? Yes. All those things, because part of it is they have a reduced circulating blood volume, and they're not able to also dissipate heat as well. We just talked about that a little bit in the previous question. So for lots of different areas in exercise physiology, as horses age, they're less efficient in their mechanisms to build muscle, to increase their cardiovascular output, to dissipate heat as they work. So all those things need to be taken into consideration. The bad news is that the researchers aren't sure what we should be doing to counter that. Although if you just use common sense with the longer, slower warm-ups, not letting the older horse down or off completely, so not pulling shoes and tossing them out for the winter, but keeping them on a plane of fitness, because it's going to be harder to bring them back, that sort of thing, and just being really paying close attention to your older horse and knowing when he needs a break, when he's had it. Maybe it's a different exercise program that is designed to build more muscle that you didn't have to worry about when he was 5 or 10, but now that he's 15, 20, you do.
Yeah, it's kind of like we say a lot, every horse is different.
Sure.
And it seems like as your horse starts to get older, maybe every year is different. And listen to your horse, you know, when you're riding, and really, you know, take the time to see how he's feeling.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that horses are living longer, because my plan is for Cody to live forever. So I'm working on that, and we're working right towards it.
You let me know how that goes.
I will. Okay. I'm 28 years going strong. So
that is impressive right there.
Thank you. So we have one more question, another question from Instagram. Reagan Little, the Hunter Jumper. Wow, what a great name. I always like when you have like the after your name. Like
Lydia,
Lydia the Beautiful.
One. Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, I thought you might.
Probably already taken.
If you were getting a new horse, how do you figure out what to feed?
It's such a simple but practical question. And what's interesting is I just helped a friend do this, and it was harder than I thought. So glad you asked it. I think the first step is finding out what the horse ate before, because we know you want to keep feed the same. And by feed, I'm talking about the hay as well as the grain. So as much as you can, keep everything the same.
And why is that important?
Because it's been shown that changing of hay increases colic risk by a factor of 10, and changing grain increases colic risk by a factor of 5.
And that changing hay doesn't mean like you moved across the country and now you're getting a totally different type of hay. It's like even from the same field, a couple months later,
yeah.
It's a big deal.
The microorganisms in the gut that do the majority of the digesting, they just get shocked. They do not like surprises. So no balloons, no none of that. They just keep it the same and steady. So that's the first step. And then when I'm calculating any horse's diet, I look at the forage first and make sure they're getting 1 to 2% of their body weight each day in high quality forage. And then I complete and balance the diet.
What are some examples of a high quality forage?
Well, it should be clean and free of dust and mold. So that's one criteria of quality. But the other is just that it's not straw-like, it's not completely stemmy, but it's got some leaves because that's where their nutrition is. It's got a fair amount of protein. Like, you don't want hay that is, less than 10% protein. You want hay that has some protein in it, as well as it's not been sitting around for 2, 3, 4 years, but it's green and fluffy and bright, and it's got still some vitamins and minerals in it.
Yeah.
So those are the quality issues I look at.
And so it's hay and pasture. Anything else that people can lump into the category of thinking forage first?
Depending on where you live, you may have to stretch your hay, and there are some commercial products that do that. Beet pulp is sort of a bridge between forage and grain, so it does have a good fiber content, and that's available. I feel like I'm missing something you were thinking of.
No, I mean, you kind of got there with the hay stretcher, and the beet pulp was the other example that I think people don't often think of when they're thinking about how to get myself more forage. Because hay can be expensive, and with droughts, hay can be hard to come by.
Right. So. And then the quality, based on the weather, the quality can be not so good. So you may have to stretch every once in a while, and that's okay.
Okay, so forage first. Yep. Where are we off to next?
Well, then you complete and balance the diet, and your options there are something. If you have really good hay, then you might just need a multivitamin mineral supplement. That's great. And if you think your hay maybe is not so high in protein, maybe you had it analyzed, then a ration balancer is also a good choice. You can go up the rung of the ladder again to a fortified grain, but then you have to feed the full serving that the bag says. And even a complete feed, like a typically thought of as senior feed, is an option. And then you look at, all along you've been assessing the body condition score, and maybe even putting a weight tape on every week or two, and you're like, is he maintaining his weight and condition with his new place he's at and the work he's doing, or is he gaining weight or losing weight? And so you use that information and you adjust the diet. That you just started this diet based on, well, this calculates out right. Well, we'll see how it actually works on the horse. So then you either add some calories in, and you can do that with the beet pulp. I like for that. You can add calories. Oats is a good way to just add some oats when you need them and decrease. There's supplements like fat that help with weight gain, or you may need to back the horse off a little bit. So maybe you were feeding a fortified grain, but the horse is gaining weight. Back off to a ration balancer. Back off to a multivitamin. Maybe slow down the eating with like a small whole hay net or a slow hay feeder. So you start with something that works out on paper, and then you adjust based on the feedback you're getting from the horse.
And the physical feedback, because the emotional feedback will always be feed me more.
More food, more treats, yeah.
So there's a lot of things that we touched on there that you and I talk about feeding horses a lot. Something we're very passionate about here at SmartPak.
Right.
So there's a couple of things that we can talk about. We could spend hours and hours on this subject alone.
Yes.
So I just want to call out a couple things that we're going to have in the description for you. One is a blog about how to read your feed label. Dr. Gray talked about making sure that you're feeding the full serving on the bag. A lot of people don't even know that grain has a serving size, and it's based on your horse's weight. So we've got a blog for that. The second one that we talked about is you talked about having your hay analyzed, and I'm assuming you don't mean lying on a couch and talking about its problems. How do you get your hay analyzed?
There are a couple of places in the country you can send samples of hay. They tell you how to sample it. You do need a special device, but locally you can get that from your feed store or county extension agent. And then you send it to these labs, and they analyze it for proteins and carbohydrates and vitamins and minerals. And there's different panels you can pay for. They range in price. And then it comes back, and then you know what quality of hay you have, and then what is needed to complete and balance it. Like, I don't need anything because it's super hay, or I need a pretty extensive fortified grain because this hay is really just like fiber and that's it.
When you said I don't need anything, I have a super hay, I thought you were just bragging, but then I realized it was just an example.
Yeah, that's like you're talking.
Last but not least, we have body condition scoring. So that's when, Dr. Gray, you talked about the feedback that your horse is giving you. And body condition scoring, it's hard to get your horse to stand on a bathroom scale without breaking it. So body condition scoring lets you keep tabs on how your horse is doing in terms of his overall fat cover. And we've got a whole bunch of great content about that as well.
Yeah, I think there's articles and video, right?
Oh, yeah. We got a lot going on. Yeah. So those will all be down in the description for you. Wow, great question. So exciting.
It seems so simple. It was so short, but it just covered so many areas.
Yeah. So question number 4 was submitted by Sammy Sam Sam 12.
Oh my gosh.
Which is a great name. My nephew's name is Sam. And Sammy Sam Sam is wondering, when moving barns, what precautions can you take to decrease your horse's stress and make it as seamless as possible?
Oh, that kind of blends into the last question because keeping the food the same is the first step I would do. I would say when I'm moving, I would ask my 2 owners, can I take some bales of hay from this place and move them over? And that's going to relieve a lot of your horse's stress. Yeah, just don't go in the cover of night and take them. Done that, been there. So the food is the same, and the same with the grain. Try to so that is out of the equation. You remove that. The next thing I would think about is keeping the schedule the same as best you can. I know if you're moving from, say, a pasture situation to a barn, or you're moving from a really big barn to a small place, you might not have a lot of ability for that, but as best you can, keep the feeding on the same time, keep the turnout the same. Like, don't go from no turnout or 30 minutes a day to 24/7. It's great.
Or big group to small group, or being alone to a big group.
Yeah, and to me the social dynamics are another whole thing in themselves. You have to be very careful when you introduce horses to each other, and hopefully the new place will say, we have a perfect group for your guy based on age and size and all that. And they'll work with you so that it's very safe. But there are some guidelines for that. I did have some other lists on here. Oh, this is a big one. Try not to do veterinary work like wellness care right when you move. Leave yourself about 2 weeks. So
not like vaccines and then on the trailer.
No, because you need about 2 weeks for it to work. And with deworming the same way, because having the vet out, I don't know why, but it's also very stressful. and then you're asking the body to internally do some things, and so you don't want to shock its system completely by new food and new environment, new friends, and also here's a vaccine with like a 5-way to work up. So save that, do that earlier. Because you may also need a Coggins or a health certificate depending on how far you're going. And then don't add any new challenges, like don't move and immediately start in a lesson program or go to a show. So give your horse some time to adapt to all the new things, and then begin to add in even more new things. And that will at least not put a huge stress load on at one time, but sort of spread it out.
Yeah. So you talked about that there are some things that are just unavoidable. Like if you're changing from a totally different situation, there you can't invent 30 acres of pasture at your new barn.
Not
if that's
yet.
what you had at your old barn. And so some horses also have to go into quarantine when they move, which can be really stressful because the horse is alone. They spend a lot of time in a stall. Are there any preventative or proactive things that horse owners can do if they're moving and they know their horse is going to be exposed to stress that they can't avoid? Is there any kind of support or things to be particularly mindful of? Are there areas of the body that are more stressed than others?
Well, horses, their stomach seems to be where their stress sort of gathers and collects. And so that's the one organ that we think of, protect at all costs, because once that begins to be irritated or inflamed, then it just spreads throughout. So at the very least, that's why we talked about keeping the nutrition the same, but you may want to add on a gastric or even a hindgut support supplement to assist your horse during this transition period. That's good. In addition, talk to your veterinarian. You might want to go one step further and actually provide something like Ulcer Guard, which is omeprazole, which is an FDA-approved medication to prevent ulcers. That might be a good step, but I would have a conversation with your vet. Some horses don't need it, and others, even every time they go to a show, they need that support. So certainly moving barns, they'll be like, whoa, it's crazy. My stomach is, butterflies. So those are two things I would think of.
Yeah, and it's one of those ounce of prevention, sort of situations. It's really nice to be able to think about that beforehand rather than deal with weeks or months of something on the other side.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sammy Sam. Last but not least, we have Sophie Equestrian 14 on Instagram wondering, what do you do when your horse constantly shakes and has sensitive ears, but there is no sign of mites?
I have a quote here from one of my favorite veterinarians. His name is Dr. Kent Allen.
You're one of my favorite veterinarians,
oh,
just so you know.
So nice. He is he's an FEI veterinarian, a foreign veterinary delegate. He's been our team vet. He's the chairman of the U.S. Equestrian Drugs and Medications Committee. He's the bomb. And what he says is, absent a diagnosis, medicine is poison, surgery is trauma, and alternative therapy is witchcraft. The point is, get a diagnosis. What this person describes could be so many things. It could be aural plaques in the ears, and I think we've talked about that. It could be a teeth problem. It could be a sinus, a guttural pouch. It could not even be anything with the head. It could be a tack issue, all sorts of things. So you've got to get the vet out, and you've got to get a diagnosis. Now, one thing it could be, and I don't know if we've talked about this, so I'm using this opportunity to do so, is head shaking, because I think there is shaking mentioned in there. That's a whole syndrome in and of itself, and it has to do with the trigeminal nerve that comes down in the head, and it's fascinating unless your horse has it, and then it's maddening to them and to you. And one of the things that people use for this is why we have all these masks out here. This is called a nose net, because horses that head shake, they think it feels like a buzzing, a tingle, an electric shock almost, and it can be stimulated by light, by wind, by bugs. But if you just put something over their nose, so this would attach to the cavus or noseband, and then this part covers the nose. And it's sort of like when you put your finger under your nose to sneeze. Yeah, so they feel like just touching their nose gives them some relief. So that's what I used. I use that when I ride, because of course he has it. This I think is new.
Of course.
Of course. This is new from Zorbine, but this is detachable. But it covers the eyes and the ears and the nose completely. So when you're out in the pasture and your horse is a head shaker, then this provides a lot of comfort. The one I have is this brand.
The Crusader.
Yeah.
Cody wears that one too.
Yeah,
His
this
name's
is the
right
nose
there.
ring. Oh, nice, because you can get it embroidered.
You can.
And then no one can borrow yours.
That's right.
So I love this. This is excellent.
Lots of good coverage.
Yeah, so
Got lots of options.
We do. We have lots of options. I'm just going to sit this one up so it looks pretty again.
Looks like a
But the diagnosis is the main thing. And then based on what it is, then you look at, now what do I do? Because if obviously if it's a teeth problem, you know, then you have the mouth worked on. If it's oral plaques, you may or may not have options. If it's head shaking, then figuring out what stimulates or triggers your horse, and then it's sort of a,
how much can you cope?
well, you have
Help
to
them
test that. You have to test to try different things to see what works. So, because in some cases there was a research study 2 years ago at AAP that said magnesium was super helpful. It was the most of like anything, and then when it was combined with melatonin, then it even was better. There isn't really a drug for head shaking yet. There's a lot of research on it, but if that's something your horse has, we do have articles and information about that.
Oh yeah, we got lots of stuff.
We got lots of stuff.
All right, well those were all our questions for our July video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for submitting the great questions. And because of our schedule, my fault again, very sorry, our September video questions are going to be accepted until July 28th. So you've got some time to get those in for the September video. As always, you can submit your questions on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on our blog at blog.smartpak.com. You can email them to CustomerCare@smartpak.com. You can text them to us.
I thought you were going to forget that one.
No, never. And you can click to chat on our website too, so don't forget about that. And don't forget to use hashtag AskTheVetVideo so that we can keep track of all those questions. Otherwise, they're just out in the world, and you're probably going to get some unhelpful answers from your uncle on Facebook or something. So use that hashtag, and you'll get the most helpful answers and some beautiful things to look at as well. If your question was answered in this or a previous video, like I said in the beginning, email customercare@smartpak.com to get your gift card. And as always, don't forget to vote, and don't forget to subscribe so that you know when our voting comes out and when you can vote on your question to get it answered and win your gift card.
Yep.
As always, thanks for watching and have a great ride.